what's going on, my man? How's everything going?
Man, everything's good, man. Just, staying busy, man. Got a lot on the plate.
What can we expect from you in 2017?
Oh, man. Well, first off, we have a group that, it's called JMO Gang, which is me, my man El God, and, J57, and, DJ Premier kind of, basically, got behind the group. So he's kind of, to some degree, he's kind of executive producing or something, So, that's the first thing, man. We already dropped a record with Big Twins on it. And then, Big Twins from, Infamous Mob. So, we got a song called Here We Go Again. Twins did the hook on that. And then after that, I'll be going into this technically the 21st anniversary of Solo Life. So I'm just working on like the third, like it's a trilogy. So we dropped Solo Nights in '96. Last year I dropped Intellectual Property, which is part of Solo Nights 2, and the final phase will be coming this year. The Solo Nights 2. I think I'm gonna call it Rhapsody. I'm not sure yet, but that'll be just putting that to bed. So I'm excited, man. Got a lot of quality music, man. Just trying to make sure the world, gives it a chance and hears it.
That's big because it's not many times that a rapper gets to celebrate 21 years inside this industry, and that was actually something I wanted to bring up to you is congratulations on being in this game for over 20 years. I mean, Soul on Ice is an essential hip-hop record. I think any crate head or any hip-hop head that is knowledgeable with the history of rap, I think is very important, not just for the West Coast, but I think Soul on Ice was an essential album in the 1990s. I think it was almost as if that was a time where record labels didn't understand what type of artists they were dealing with. Now, I know you were on Priority back in '96. Did you have conversations with Priority on what the concept of Soul on Ice was going to be?
Yeah. I mean, they had heard, they heard the demo, and some of the songs on my demo ended up on the album, so they knew what they were getting. Nature of the Threat was on my demo, so they pretty much knew what Ras Kass was about. Sometimes companies they may see something with potential, and then they try to do the whole square peg to a round hole thing. I just wasn't really, and I watched it happen with other artists too. I wasn't like the only artist they didn't really get. They had a system that they thought was they could just run anything through it, and just some people are a little bit different, and there's nothing better or worse than the other artists. It's just, it was about understanding, my brand and what I represent was a lot different than like just gangster rap.
Jumping into the Soul on Ice Diamond D version, how did that manifest? How did you link up with Diamond D?
Diamond knew me. Well, I would say he was acquainted with me. He had met me with Kid Capri. I'd been out in New York with Kid, and probably about a month before the album was gonna drop. Just they felt like, and I agree with them. We wanted to remix some records and shoot a video to get some heat on the album and some awareness. And so, obviously, Diamond D was on my like bucket list of them, producers I wanted to work with. And we were given an opportunity. He said yes. Literally, it was crazy. We were going to master and shoot the video on a Monday. And I think I flew out to New York on a Friday. We had to start from scratch and make a song. Like, I hadn't written nothing. He didn't have a beat, but we did it. That's what, like, it was make or break. Like, either we would have came up with like a horrible song or an all right song, but I think I sat in his house and we made history. So I'm always, a big fan, and it's a, special memory for me to, I hadn't really known him to be able to just sit and, we went from scratch and put that record together. Yeah, and nailed it.
Is that how you got a lot of production credits on your first album? Because looking on it, I see that, yes, you have your songwriting credits, but you also have some production credits. I believe so. Is it because you were sitting with your producers and building up the album from scratch, and pretty much envisioning the sound you wanted on your album?
Yeah, I mean, I was, there was a lot of shady business going on, but yeah, I was producing, I was buying the records and looking for the sounds that I wanted for Solo 9. And so I did a lot of the co-production. I would find the samples, put them to the tempo I wanted. I didn't really program the drums. I would bring them to my friends after that. But I was expending so much money, that, like buying the records and doing all that, and then they weren't compensating me for being a producer, and so it left a really bad taste in my mouth at the time that the production company was doing that. And so kind of after the first album, I stopped doing it as much. With the Diamond record, I had nothing. I was sitting in one room probably watching TV, and I just kept hearing stuff, and he was going through records, and I just remember I heard that, that whatever that is, I want that. So he put drums to it, and I got to writing. So, I had no production at all with Diamond. I just happened to be in the room as he was, starting from scratch. Everything else, like Et Cetera and Miami Life, those were things that I actually went and bought the record, sampled stuff, sped it up, slowed it down. Whatever. I was an intricate part of creating the soundscape for the first album.
That's amazing, and that's awesome that you caught that, because that beat is forever one of the hottest, dopest beats that were ever put out. So good ear on that, man. That's like a good catch right there.
Oh man, I'm happy I was there.
Yeah. Now, that was all after you had done the Wake Up Show freestyle. I just want to ask you real quick, did you ever imagine that essentially almost everybody who was on that Wake Up Show intro, that you all would have such successful careers, illustrious careers?
Oh yeah, man. I did. I mean, the Wake Up Show at that period, there wasn't another outlet in LA, let alone just around the country. You got to remember, LA's the second biggest market, so New York being the first. There were no morning radio shows that played rap music, like unless you had already sold 1 million records. So at that point, you're talking about 95 and 94, Wu-Tang and Big Pun and Snoop and Jay-Z, like everybody's got to go to the Wake Up Show. Like you're going to go to the Wake Up Show because there is no place for you to go if you're doing a promo run. You're going to be on at midnight or whatever on Friday or Saturday or whatever it was. And so people were, we were like dying to get on the Wake Up Show. Like, that's where, we heard Biggie and Nas before they sold a lot of records. So yeah, of course, man. And it was a real, it was a war zone, I mean, it was so many talented people, but everybody was hungry, and, so that goes, at whoever, Eminem, Tech Nine, Ras Kass, Chino, except like whoever it was, Cannabis, everybody was hungry. So you went in there trying to earn your keep because, that was your only outlet to be heard. And you might be among, you might be with Coogee Rap, you could be with Nas, like, didn't know who was going to be, in LA on a promo run. So, people were, it was a breeding ground of talent because they didn't keep you around if you couldn't hold your own. If you, if you fell off, you got cut. So no, it was dope, man. I expected great things, and I met so many talented people. Yeah, man, I knew that I was amongst the lead MCs from all over the country.
Did you ever have a conversation with anybody from there? Like, have you ever gotten to have that sit down with Nas and just reminisce on anything? You ever met with him?
I personally, I've had conversations with Nas. Not necessarily. I'm on the Wake Up Show Anthem, and basically, it was a great. It was a really great bestowing, because the anthem was Lauryn Hill doing the hook, Nas, Organized Confusion, which is Prince Cole and Pharoah Monch.
Yep, shout out to them.
Yeah, so, I mean, and everybody else was signed. I would later on sign the Priority Records and be label mates with Organized Confusion, but at the time I was the only unsigned person, and I was among, these great MCs and held my own. So, yeah, we've talked, the times I've come across them, not necessarily about specifically the Wake Up Show, but yeah, of course. I mean, just once again, it's just an amazing time period. Like, I don't think it'll ever be duplicated like that. It's like going to Stretch and Bobbito back in the day in New York. Like, you can't repeat that. Like that caliber of MCs and, just going to a little grimy little college radio show. Like, but you had to go. If you wanted to be respected, if you wanted to be heard, if you wanted to try to make a name for yourself, you had to go in the deep water with the sharks. And so, it's that same difference. That was, that was what we had as an outlet. That was our only outlet in LA, and it started originally in the Bay. But once again, yeah, me and Chino kind of discussed stuff and, a cannabis or whatever. I've never had like a Wake Up Show conversation with Nas specifically, no.
Okay. And also around this time, Priority Records had you doing a lot of soundtrack records. Did you enjoy doing them?
No, at that time, just Sway and them brought me on to the Street Fighter soundtrack. Priority continued to pull me onto, the Rhyme and Reason soundtrack and the Substitute soundtrack. And they did a lot of the soundtracks for whatever reason. So, no, it was just always another opportunity to be heard, not necessarily to have a single, but, some of those soundtracks I was on the same soundtracks, that, featured, whoever, Nas and Nelly. And so, Rhyme and Reason, I got to do, my first collab and rock with Helter Skelter. I was able to pull my friend Cannabis onto that song. So those things were cool, man. They were definitely pluses, not I never saw them as negatives. They gave us, it was some more money. They would pay us for them. They were other outlets to be around other people who we may or may not knew. I definitely never complained about that. It was later on where I think, they weren't so busy, so interested in putting me on the soundtracks. So, it's good when you're on the receiving end of all the extra perks. I'm definitely not complaining.
Rassassination comes out, your second album. That featured one of the dopest videos of all time in Ghetto Fabulous. How was the atmosphere when Rassassination came out?
Oh man, I was, it was surreal for me. MTV came, I was working with Dr. Dre. Obviously I'm from LA. I'm a big fan. Mac 10 was my label mate. He was always such a cool big brother to me. So, to have the people involved that I had involved on the album period, for me, I was just, I never got too wrapped up in like, oh, I'm a blow up and all that stuff. I was always kind of like, hey man, I have no control over that. I can only make the music. It's up to, there's so many other steps. It's radio, it's promo, it's whatever. So my whole thing was, if they do what they're supposed to do, then I think we got something here that could be successful, and viable for the company. And like I said, when MTV came, I was like, oh man, wow, man, like maybe we got something here, man. This is pretty awesome. So I was just taking it in stride, man. I was, I was happy that we pulled it off, because it's normally not as simple as Um, Sonically, I was happy with it. Lyrically, I was happy with it. And I thought we were in the right direction, for monetary, success.
Was Ghetto Fabulous the first time you got to work with Dr. Dre in the studio?
No, 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 no. Through, his A&R, Mike Glenn, and a friend of mine, Flip, who had produced on the first album, produced on the second album, pretty much produced on everything, on every album I've had. He had brought me in when he first left Death Row. So I was over, potentially writing, just kind of being a part of the system. So I had worked with Dre, quite a few times prior to that. Yeah, like for about, probably by then for about a year or something.
Is it true that Dr. Dre just has vaults and vaults full of music, full of hard drives, and that he's always in the studio, he just doesn't put it out? Is it true that he's just a workaholic like that?
He's a perfectionist and a workaholic and rich. So that's sometimes it's not even a good combination, because he can second guess himself and he'll have so much amazing stuff and just kind of overthink it, in my opinion. But it's brilliant. Yeah, man, like he's got vaults of everybody and everything. And I'm all, sometimes I'm just like, man, let that shit go. Like it's amazing. Let the world hear this amazing stuff. But, for him, it's not a big rush. But yeah, man, he is a workaholic, definitely. And, that's what I did learn from him. And the cool thing about him is that he showed me was that he was always willing to let anybody in the room, attempt something. If they thought they had an idea, he'd let them do it. I remember him letting, like, the cleaning lady, like, needed somebody to do something, like, to say this part, and like it was a lady cleaning up, and he was like, well, shit, go ahead and try it. Like, she put the mop down and tried it. So, I mean, I always thought that was kind of cool, because every voice is an instrument, and, she may not have made it for that song, but, there was an attempt, and she could have possibly been on a fucking hit record with whoever was in the studio that particular day. So I always thought that was amazing. I've always tried to keep that in mind when I'm recording, that everybody's potentially valid and can help make the song a better song.
That's awesome. I never knew Dr. Dre had that side of him where it doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a company or you're the janitor. He's gonna respect you either way. It doesn't matter who you are, and he'll give you that minute of the day. Now, Rassassination was your last album on Priority, right?
No. Put out another record that we both, because of the lack of, they were restructuring. They had sold half to Capitol, and then they had sold the other half to Capitol Records, EMI. So I had an album called Van Gogh. It was about a week. It was going to come out in a week, and no one had done their job. So we decided to basically shelf the album and then go back and do another album. And take some of the records we liked off of Van Gogh. And that was Golden Child. So that's with the Premiere and the Kanye West and all that, and the High Tech record and all that. Yeah, and that's kind of where everything came to a head. And so there's actually 4 albums with Capitol. 2 didn't come out, and the 2 with Priority Capitol didn't come out. The 2 at the beginning came out, and so it was looking really hard to ever get an album out there, and that's where the frustration came from.
The industry was changing at that time as well, so a lot of artists realized that you could have went indie at that time and probably put out that album and did a better job than what the record labels were gonna do. But at that time, the indie market wasn't as prolific as it is today.
Right.
So that's it's definitely tragedy. But all those tracks got released, and we all got to hear them.
Not all of them, but a majority, but not all of them. Nah.
That is that something that you find easier now that you have the flexibility to bring in your own marketing team.
It's definitely easier. It still takes. You got to remember that there's only certain sites that are valid. You know that really that people tune into, whether that's your World Star or your Dub CNN or whatever that site is. Let's just say there's 20 of them. So yeah. You're still competing with Def Jam, Bad Boy, and they're spending shitloads of money. So that their artists are the ones that are more visual. So you're still fighting the same campaign. We just know exactly where we got to go. So it's still the same fight, and they're still going to outmatch you. Their dollar's stronger than yours.
Exactly. It's very rare. That's why you take a look at what just transpired at the Grammys. I don't know if you saw that Chance the Rapper came home with a couple Grammys, and he's an independent rapper. He doesn't have a deal as we speak right now. I mean, he does have a lot of, a big circle around him. He has a lot of big names, but he's not necessarily signed to a label that is the machine backing his music.
I'm not as familiar with his whole situation, but good, kudos for him if that's the case, man. It's very rare to be able to get yourself in those circles where you're getting the proper booking agent, the people that are going to put you on those shows, or the proper PR person that's going to get you booked on, doing the Daily Show and doing, Seth Meyers or whatever, so kudos to him, man. I mean, it can be done. It is extremely harder, because as Wild West as the internet looks, it's still controlled by money, and somebody has a lot more money. But yeah, it can be done, and for the Macklemores and Chance the Rappers that can get in there and utilize it, they're in such a great position, and I'm very enthused and shit. Like I said, I cheer for him. Like, if you can do it, Tech Nine, it can be done. It can be done. It's just a lot harder, and but the reward is, the payoff is obviously that much greater. So once again, kudos to them.
It's awesome that you remain humble and you are this very down to earth. You're very well mannered. It seems as if you're very modest about yourself, where people talk about Ras Kass and they throw you as one of the greatest artists in hip hop ever. People talk of you as a West Coast legend. Is it sometimes just it's hard to accept that?
Part of this is that I still have to stay focused on getting my respect. I have my understanding behind closed doors. People know who I am, but the world doesn't know who the fuck I am. And so for me to feel appreciated, they need to treat me like they treat Nas, Jay-Z, Rakim, Eminem, Tech Nine, Jadakiss, Common, Mos Def, Kweli, there's so many more, Redman, Method Man, and they need to pay me the same way. So I got a lot of work to do because they still haven't treated me with the respect that I deserve.
Do you do a lot of touring overseas? Do you go overseas a lot?
Yeah, and we want to increase that more. So, yeah, we definitely want to continue to keep making sure and expanding on that and making sure we hit, not just Japan, but, Thailand and, not just Hawaii, but, the Philippines. Like, yeah, we want to just keep growing, man.
And I know you like to stay very aware of what's going on in the world today. Do you have any thoughts on the current travel bans?
I mean, we know what that's about. I mean, I don't know why we should be surprised. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And, this does go, people said the whole thing about Hillary and didn't vote and honestly, there's very little that, if you take a civics class, there's very little that people can do now because they didn't do anything in the beginning. So, they have the House, they have the Senate. Just look at the lady that they made, for education. Like, and so even when it's a tie, it took two Republicans to say, man, this lady's unqualified. Like, this is ridiculous. It doesn't matter because when there's a tie, then the vice president breaks the tie. So they've got it cinched. They're going to pass whatever they want to pass. This one and then, basically once he it's 4-4, once he's going to put another, it's usually 9 people, I believe, on on the Supreme Court, it's going to swing right. And then, they'll be instituting racism and stopping frisk and women go to jail for, we just didn't do what we were supposed to do voting wise. And now legally, a lot of, they're going to pass these things, even though they're morally wrong, they're going to be able to legally pass them. You got to remember slavery was legally okay. It was morally wrong, but it was legally, it was legally fair. It was legally law. Same thing with, you could beat your wife. There was a time when you could smack her up because she didn't own property, so she had no right. So that's morally wrong, but it was legally okay. And we put them back into a position where people who are very immoral people, very racist, very sexist, very homophobic, very Islamophobic, whatever, that you gave them the power to define laws and define what's right and wrong, at least in a court of law.
Wow, man. Great insight, my brother. I definitely appreciate that insight. And I definitely appreciate you joining me on the show today. You are truly one of the greatest hip hop legends of the West Coast. And you are very instrumental to the West Coast and their subgenre with rap. And I just want to thank you for joining me on the show today.
Oh, thanks, Ruben, man. I really appreciate it, brother, man. You have a great one.
Hey, you take care of yourself too, man. One.